Hello and welcome to another episode of Raw Chatter. I have got an incredible lady with me today. Chandra and I met online via an email that she sent me, and I was so intrigued that I just had to have a conversation with her. She has got an amazing story, folks, that is going to both inspire you and help you to marvel on how incredible we females can be when we have to be. So, Chandra, I'm going to just open up the floor. You're going to start off with quite a sensitive part of your tale, but it's poignant
Mhm.
and it's relevant, isn't it? So,
It
welcome
is.
and over to you.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. Don't know any other way to say it. And so today I would just like to share a bit about my story on dealing with my loss. I lost my brother to gun violence in October the 11th of 2018, and it completely shook my entire family. And if you lose a family member to violence, you lose a family member, period. You're never the same.
Yeah.
But it's something about having someone snatched away from you like that it changes you in a way that just resonates over time, right? And
Right.
so
So,
we
for
are.
people listening who are not kind of used to
Mm,
what goes on in America with guns and the laws and
oh,
all that kind of stuff, just help them to put it in the pictures, because I think a lot of people who don't live in America have this kind of fictionalized, thanks to TV programs and films, idea that it's all about being in gangs and that sort of stuff. But that's not the
mm.
story, is it? No.
It's not. Our particular story, someone broke into my mom's house. She was in the house sleeping, and they must have thought she was home. No one was home.
Right.
And she thought she awakened to go to the restroom. And when she came out to her room, there was a gentleman there, and he had a gun, and he came over and put a gun to her head and slammed her on the floor.
Whoa.
Um, and so when my brother, who was at college at the time, um, began to come in the door, right? He heard someone with the key trying to come in the door, and the guy that came to rob the house dropped his gun and he ran out the back.
Wow.
Okay. And so my mom clearly shook, right?
Yeah.
She got herself together. She called everyone, family included. And when she described the young man, because he has a skin disease, one of my brothers knew exactly who he was.
Oh goodness.
Um, yeah, and as you could imagine, any hot-headed young kid, he decided to go after him.
Right.
And they he chased him out of town, long story short. So this guy who came to rob my mother's house saw my brother maybe 5 years later and shot my brother in the street.
Just like
Um,
that. Wow.
with an AK-47. And so to give you context, so much there. So much
Yeah.
to unpack there. Not really sure how much to share. But
Whatever
to give
you
you,
feel
yeah,
is okay.
just to make it real, right? It's not TV. It was something
Yeah.
we had to live through. I had just spoken, me and my mom are close on the day it happened, and I had just spoken to her because I just started a new position. And here in the government, when you start with the government, you have to get an ID card. And for the position, I had to change out my old ID card and get a new one. And I was on my way home from there, and we had just gotten off the phone, and I knew she was going to meet my brother. At this time, when he passed away 5 years later, he was a single father. And she had went to meet him to get his little girl, who was 2 at the time, so that he could go to the grocery store without having to deal with the baby. And so she was going to meet him. And when she called me right back, she was screaming to the top of her lungs. And it's like something you will never forget because it stays with you, right? It's
Yeah.
been years. And yet I still hear it clearly. And she was screaming and she said, they killed him. They killed him. And the phone hung up and she called back and, she was screaming again. And immediately I started calling people. I'm in shock. And I said, someone has got to get to my mom. I live 4 hours from my mother.
Whoa.
And I began to call family members and say, somebody has got to get to my mom. And in shock, not realizing I was traumatizing the people I was calling in the moment because we all loved
You
him.
wouldn't though, would you? You just did what you
But
knew you
I
had
di
to do.
I just knew someone had to get to my mom because I couldn't imagine as a mom finding my son, laying in the street dying.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine, and so it was just a lot. It was a lot.
That is a lot. Wow. And
Yeah,
that really is such a massive event.
yeah,
As you said right at the start, it just changes so many things,
yeah.
not
So many
just
things.
for the immediate family, but for who you feel you are and what
Yeah.
you actually want to do with your life. So
Oh,
this
absolutely.
incredible, like just totally shocking event happened, and then suddenly you've got to deal with it somehow.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And so it took us weeks. I think we didn't get his body back until 2.5 weeks later, October 25th. We was able to put him to rest and bury him. And I told them, like my mother couldn't handle any of it. And so I took on the role of doing all the things, getting the burial plot and picking out the casket and doing the programs and meeting with all the officiants. And I remember standing on the stage and I told it was the church was packed and everybody came and told how great of a guy he was, how he had helped so many people. And I said they don't get to steal him from us and tell his story like this. And so I said, I'm gonna do something. I don't know what it was at the moment. I said, but I'm gonna do something where he gets to live. And so we buried him October 25th, and we were sitting around my house like around November 1st. And I said, well, it's the first. And we said we were going to do something. And I said, we're going to do something. I said, so we're going to start a foundation. And and that was the beginning of that. Not fully knowing what I was stepping into
Right. Oh, yeah.
at
It
all.
was just an idea then, wasn't it?
But
Yeah.
yeah, it was just like I knew I had to do something. I was angry, of course, right?
Yeah.
Um, as a person of faith, I don't believe that you take a life for a life. I believe, like you have to do things for the greater good. And I was like, I don't want another family to experience what we experienced. And so it's like, okay, I have two masters. I was like, put this brain to use.
Yeah.
And I started looking into it and doing the research, and I found that families that were more likely poor or socioeconomically challenged, they didn't have access to resources. And I said, well, we're going to serve those families so that if we can keep one more family from feeling what we felt and going through what we went through,
Mm.
then it becomes worth it. And it's just like mind
Incredible.
blowing,
Yeah.
right?
So
And
when you started then
yeah,
down that path, I'm guessing it really kind of took over when you realized just how
uh,
much was involved and
yeah.
what you needed to do and how to get help to make it happen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So many things.
Yeah.
So that first year, it was like November 1st, we decided, and by Thanksgiving and Christmas, we had already adopted families to serve. And we provided Thanksgiving dinners, and we provided Christmas dinners, and we provided Christmas gifts for children. And then we started with the homeless, and we started with all type of things, serving underprivileged youth, 18 to 24, and mentorship and grants and all these things. Well, ironically enough, at the same time in my life, I was working for the government and I had left government service and I said I was going to work on my own. I was going to be a government consultant. And so I was pivoting professionally at the same time that I lost my brother. And when I decided to take this thing on, because I left him and I couldn't just let it go,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I began to put all my energy into building my nonprofit and not building my company. And so I did enough in my company to create an income because I still had children I had to take care of. I still had bills and I had
Yeah.
life. But the strive, the desire, the passion, everything I had that was stowed up and built into building out my consulting firm then was directed into my nonprofit.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't, this is where you realize as much as we women do
Yeah.
seem to be able to do it all, you have to
Oh,
at some point prioritize. And there
yeah.
is something that is always going to have to sit a little bit on the back burner.
Oh,
And as
yeah.
you said, I mean, you've got family, You also got your mum to consider. You had to
Yeah,
do all of the
yeah,
sorting out of setting up the foundation, and then I'm guessing you were in charge of making sure that it was being run as you wanted it
exactly.
to be run, and your own business. So it's a lot.
It was a lot, but I think in the moment it was what I needed because I allowed myself to serve and heal.
Yeah,
And it brought us together as a family when we were kind of to support each other, right?
yeah,
Grief is a sticky thing where your friends don't quite know what to say. And
mm,
so when you want to like scream or you want to say his name, then it gets like, oh God, is it okay?
yeah,
Some people want to ask, how are you doing? And they don't know quite how to do that. I know when everything first happened, everybody wanted to push in, and I was like, I just need space. Like, I just need a minute, right?
yeah.
And so it's family becomes a safe space,
Right,
right? Support groups become you're part of a crappy club, right? Because we all got a common theme, but we
right.
all understand each other, right? And
That
so
makes sense.
dealing with holidays, and it's like how do you start to maneuver and how do you learn to strategize in that space
Mm.
so that you can survive, right? You still got
And you bring out
kids.
some really important points
Yeah.
there, because nobody knows how they're going to cope with it. And if anybody listening has gone through grief, and maybe
Mm.
multiple types of grief, because it's not just a person dying, is it, when you're grieving? It can be the
Mm.
loss of a job, or
Oh
having to
yeah.
move home, or and pets often
Oh
just like
yeah.
family members too. So it doesn't have to be somebody dying, but when it is somebody dying, you just genuinely don't know how it's going to
Mhm.
affect you. And we all have this idea of what we think grief
Yeah.
is, but it can be anything, can't it? And it can just randomly hit. And so the power of
Oh,
groups and talking
mm.
about it, and even if that just means that you're being held in a space and you can just go, I don't actually want to speak, but I just kind of want to feel a part of,
Oh
it's
yeah.
okay, isn't it?
It absolutely is. I remember my little sister, we were sitting in a field and she was crying and we were talking and it had been probably like a few weeks since it happened. And we don't live close geographically, but we're close, right? We
Right.
talk almost every day. And so we were just sitting there and she's like, I just felt like I need to do something. I just want to scream. And I said, well, scream.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
sometimes people need you to just give them permission, right?
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
think yeah, I think my takeaway in all of this, and I'm a fixer. I'm Miss Fix It, right? So everybody calls me when they have a problem. But I think my takeaway in managing it all when I realized like even for myself, I hadn't given myself permission to let go and to grieve. It's like every year, instead of me worrying about am I going to offend anybody? How am I going to feel? I just give myself permission to leave. So I take trips every year.
Nice.
Um, because
That's
I
good.
don't know. Like one year I was fine, and then the next year, like I was okay. I wanted to celebrate. I wanted to eat his favorite foods. But the next year I was angry. I wanted to fight. I had so much anger and rage in me. And
Mm.
it's like, I don't feel like I owe it to anyone more than I owe it to myself to allow myself to feel that. And I think, you
Incredible.
know,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's such an important thing for people to hear, is that, because you have got to take ownership for your own feelings and
Oh
allow
yeah,
and giving yourself permission, especially as a
absolutely.
woman. I just think there is so much conditioning
Yeah.
around, don't be hysterical, don't show how you really feel because you might
Right.
upset somebody else,
Who
and all
cares?
of that kind of stuff. And especially when you are somebody like you, who is obviously intelligent and driven and has achieved a lot of what people externally would see as success,
Yeah.
there's this feeling that you have to maintain this
Yeah.
persona, and then you kind of lose who actually am I, and what am I genuinely feeling? Do I even know?
Oh
And
yeah.
to be able to give yourself that permission, it sounds such an easy thing to do, but it's actually not, is it?
No, it's not. I remember when it was time for me to change in my cat card. Remember the day it happened, I had gotten the cat card. And so when it was time for it to be exchanged, I get to the office because you go into a government building to take the picture for them to reissue the card. And as I'm sitting in the parking lot, the tears just start to flow. And I'm like, not now. In my brain, I'm like, get it together, not now. Like, you're here for work, right? But I couldn't get it together. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to miss my appointment. And so I had to make the decision, like, I'm going to go into this place and these people kind of look at me, right? I'm kind of bright skinned. So my nose is red, my eyes are puffy, right?
Yeah.
And I got the tissue because I've taken them all out of my glove box because I'm in my car. And I'm like, I've got to get through this. And they're like, are you okay? And I'm like, yes, I'm grieving. And but it's like, how do you position yourself? I'm this person of authority. You know what I mean? You're a
Mm.
leader. Like, get it together. We don't just,
Yeah.
government lead. And so that's when it dawned on me, like, I don't want to explain myself every year. So how do I fix this? I'm
Right.
not going to shelf it because I don't think it's healthy. I need to
No.
be able to fully express myself and be free with that and celebrate him or grieve him or love him or whatever, sit with whatever I'm feeling. And
Mm.
so I think the best thing is, without being responsible to anyone else, is just to take that and to just go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's what I do. And
You do.
yeah, and it serves me. It does.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
so you got through all of the stuff, and then you decided that you were going to step away. You set up
Yeah.
your own business, and through the journey that you have been on, because as big an issue as your brother's death, completely out of the blue, that you could have never envisaged happened,
Yeah.
you also had other kind of major issues going on in your life as well,
Just
that again, I think as females we just kind of pass it off and oh yeah, that happened
yeah.
and I dealt with it. But just share, some of the other kind of life experiences that you
So
have gone through that actually now are important in the way that you can help other people.
So absolutely. In the nonprofit, again, my brother passed in 2018, so we started immediately with a mentorship in the classes that we offer the community. I realized, like, as a consultant, you do advise, but I realized I like teaching. I realized I like coaching. My background is strategy, and so as a program manager, it worked. I said, I think I want to do this full time. I came to that conclusion through my experience with the nonprofit. But when I really decided to do it was when I became an empty nester.
Yeah,
Should
more
we all
loss.
just pause?
Yeah, just pause, because this
Yeah,
is loss, but of a different kind,
yeah, yeah.
which brings up a whole myriad of other
Oof.
emotions, doesn't
Oh
it?
my God. It
Yeah.
does. I realized in that time, I was by myself for about a year and a half, and it was the first time in my entire life I was on my own. No siblings. So transitioned from siblings to children and a husband to grandkids to finally being off on my own. And it was one of the hardest years of my life. And to sit with myself, initially with me and my pup, I have a Frenchie, his name is Sire,
Mm.
and not have to consider anyone. My mom, her husband is terminal, and she didn't do well with my brother's passing. I don't know how she's going to take her husband passing. And out of me and my siblings, I felt like I was the better pick to say, I'll come closer so that I can support you in this. And when my kids graduated from high school and they were going off to college, I said, well, I said I was gonna rent the house, but I ended up selling the house and buy a house closer to mom. And that's what
Wow.
I did. And so I didn't take into account that I had my grandchildren in my life full time. I had my children in my life full time. My grandkids came home to my house. And so when I moved 4 hours away to support my mom, it was me and my dog. It's very lonely.
Wow.
And I was like, why didn't anybody tell me about this? Lots of crying and lots of
But this
quiet
is
days.
this is where you do what you think is the right thing
Yeah,
for other people,
yeah,
and you kinda just think, "Well, you know what? I'll deal with it."
yeah.
And you just don't know, do you, how it's gonna affect
Was
you.
not prepared at all. Lots of soul searching. I mean, I'm glad I did it on the other end. And I'll say this, kids sleep, but they come back, right? So, um, what I realized is when they came back, because I have a daughter that's in the military and she moved closer, I'm like, I cannot wait to have my house back. But the process of getting there, the process of learning myself and spending time with myself for no clear good reason, it was difficult. And that brought me to my new passion, which is coaching. But I think a lot of times as women, because we're always taught to put everyone first, we're
Mm,
always taught like, we're nurturers, we're givers, we build people and all the things, but sometimes we forget ourselves in that. Um,
yeah.
and it's quite the journey.
And I think this is such an important thing that we need to talk about, because
Yeah,
who actually are we, and did we even know who we were? Because we transition, don't we, from
yeah,
daughter at home, and you've got siblings, so
yeah,
where you are within the hierarchy of your siblings kind of gives you a little bit of an identity. And
yeah,
then you go off and you do the kind of the thing, you do the college and you get the degrees and you get the good job, and then you get the husband and you do the 2.4 kids and the house and all of this stuff, and you kind of, we're ticking boxes
yeah.
and we think that this is what we want, but we're so in it that we don't really take the opportunity or the time to actually
Mm.
take stock and say, is this my path? Is this really what I wanted to do? Because you've just kind of just followed this pattern
Wow.
that you think you should do. And then, as you said, suddenly you've got all this space and this time to
Mm.
be with yourself. So tell us about some of the conversations that were going on in your head and some of the things that you were thinking about, because I think it's so important for people to understand. We all think that we're the only ones who think this stuff. She's laughing, but we're not, are we?
Not at all. Not at all. I think one of the hardest things for me is like because I'm a giver and because I am a fixer, people call me when they need things. And it was like I felt like nobody's gonna check up on me. Like I'm here by myself. Like, what is this? And because I had created such a life that was built around catering to everyone, and it was like, okay, now I don't have anybody to cater to, nobody to fix, nobody to give to. Like, what do I do with myself?
Right,
Right? Like,
right.
what are my hobbies? What are my passions? What do you want to do? You can, read so many books. You can lay on the hammock so much. I love sunsets. So I'm sit outside on the porch, walk the dog. But after walking the dog, like, am I going to watch TV now? Am I going to find groups now? Like, do I make more friends now? Like, what does that look like? And
Yeah,
this part of I have grandkids. So on this side of life, it's like we don't really go out and make friends, right? I'm in a whole new city, a new
yeah.
state. I don't know anyone. I
Wow.
don't have any family around, right? So it's like, and I work 100% remote online. And so it was like, yeah. And I'm an
Mm.
introvert, but I felt isolated. So I was like,
What's
if you could
going on?
imagine, yeah, the nails on the chalkboard, it was like, okay. And it was really a time of finding myself and redefining myself and saying, you could easily curl up and, be I could get more dogs or get a cat and a dog, right? And isolate myself even more, right? Or I can say, what's next for me?
Right,
And so that was my next pivot. It was like, I'm not happy in consulting, right? Initially, I wanted to be this great con contracting firm and mogul, and I lost my brother, and it shifted me in such a way that that was no longer my focus. And
right.
so I'd evolved into a different person that
Yeah.
no longer wanted what I wanted before that happened.
And it's fascinating because you have no idea
Yeah.
where potentially you can go. But the good thing is, and you said something really important there, you made a choice. And
Mhm.
it's very easy, I think, if we are isolated and if we don't know anybody, to just stay in that bubble. And then it's even harder, isn't it, to be able to step foot out the door and start to
It
communicate
is.
again. And we know that lockdown had a tremendously
Mhm.
detrimental effect on people being isolated and being
Yeah,
alone. It's a real serious precursor to an awful lot of illnesses, not just mental illnesses, but
yeah,
physical illnesses as well, is loneliness. It's, we think of stress as being a killer, but loneliness, I think, is worse. And
yeah.
so for you to be able to say, okay, I need to do something different. Next pivot coming up. So tell us what you did.
So I pivoted in a few ways. I became more communicative, right? Find out what's going on in the community, find out what communities I could be a part of. Even my nonprofit and some of the organizations I work with, I became more engaged in things they had going on as well, right?
Fantastic.
Because I think the key is not just fresh air and vitamin D, but I think we need the human interaction. And so it's giving yourself permission to say, okay, things have changed. The kids are no longer on my radar. The grandkids are no longer close. Let's go outside and see what's out there, right? And so giving myself the opportunity and the permission to explore. I love traveling. I'm a nerd, so I love learning new things.
Brilliant.
But
Embrace
yeah,
we like that though, because it makes you
yeah,
curious, doesn't
yeah,
it?
yep.
Yeah,
And so, and giving yourself permission to be curious, right? To explore.
absolutely. It's key.
And so yeah, it's been a journey. And it kind of landed me where I am. I'm a coach now, business coach and strategist, and my clients are women in the third quarter of life, which is typically women over 40,
Yeah,
right? And it's typically at that pivot point. It's like, okay, I did the corporate, I did the college, I did the kids, I did the husband. Now what about me, right? Where do I find myself in that? And then how do I give myself permission, right?
yeah.
Without feeling like an imposter. How I show up in the world now authentically as myself and say it's okay, right? And we do that through community. We do that through mindset. We do that through being intentional, and giving ourselves permission because we have the right, because we
It's
deserve it.
it's right, and this is the bit that I
Yeah,
think for so many women, just saying those words, I
yeah,
deserve it, I'm worth it. And I know
mm,
a lot of people think of that L'Oreal advert, you're worth it. But it's kind of just words. And a lot of women find it really difficult to really
they
truly
do.
embody
Mm,
what that actually means. And I do think that it's so important to be able to feel that you can talk to
yeah,
somebody who understands how difficult it is to even begin to give yourself permission and to just go, do you know what? I don't actually know who I am. I
yeah.
thought
I
I thought
think
I was this because all my life I've been doing these things that kind of
right.
mean that that is my identity. But actually, if I'm honest, I don't really know who I am, what I want, what lights me up, and that's where you can step in, can't you? Because it's having somebody to ask you the right questions.
That's it.
Yeah, and that's what you do is help people to discover just what is their next step, their next pivot, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have to look a certain way, does it?
It doesn't. I think we should be more intentional about living life on our terms. And I do. I live by example, right? Clearly.
Yeah,
But a lot of times we're afraid to give ourselves the permission. I keep saying permission because I think a lot of times we don't, right? We sit on it like, I'm afraid. Well, what are you afraid of? Let's talk about it, right? What is one of my favorite questions I ask is, what does that look like? What does
right.
success look like? What does happiness look like? Let's talk about that. I want you to describe it vividly, plainly, clearly for me so that I can embody it. I can step into it. I can feel it, right? And a lot of times we don't want to do that because it then requires something else from us. But when you start asking the right questions, and it makes them form answers, but it also gives them permission to think about it and just kind of play with it in their brain. It's like, pulling it out of them, almost like a cord, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So that they can start saying, oh, okay, now I see it. It's like, okay, well, what does it look like if we go after that thing? What does it take for that to be a reality? Right. So it's not just, oh, I want to start a business. Okay, but what what season
Yeah,
are you in? Does it serve you in this season? Right?
yeah,
Does
yeah.
it fit your life? Right?
And these are such key questions that
They are.
you're not going to sit and do this stuff on your own. And
Yeah.
it needs a conversation, doesn't it, Chandra?
It
Because, yeah,
does.
yes, you can journal. I'm a big fan of journaling. But what do you do with that stuff? Right?
Exactly.
Does it just stay in a book and you go back and you read it? Oh, that would be nice. Right. Or do you actually have a conversation? Because as you know, conversation is great, and being creative and allowing yourself, and I love the word that you said, go into your brain and play around, like
Yeah.
what is possible, just let your imagination
Mm,
run riot. But then, as you said as well, what season are you in and what
mm,
feels right, what fits you now?
exactly.
But then you've got to make it happen. And I think
Exactly.
that's the part where, I don't know about you, but I just feel just globally there's
Mm,
this kind of, I don't know, lethargy There's people talk about doing stuff, but then where's the action behind those intentions? And that's where coaching is so important, isn't it?
Coaching and community, I think is so key here. Statistically speaking, if you tell somebody about a goal, you're 65% more likely to achieve it. But when you have someone to hold you accountable on a regular basis, 95% more likely to achieve the goal. And so you see, like, just how we are, like you said, if you journal it, it's like, I'm going to take this and I hold it to myself, right? Nobody's looking, nobody can hold me accountable. But the
Yeah.
fact that we say it, it brings it to life. But then when we have somebody say, hey, what's up? What's going on with that? Then it's
Mm.
like, oh, wait a minute, I got to get back to that because now somebody is naturally what pulling that
Mm.
expectation out of you. And as givers and nurturers, right, we are like, oh, we got to show up because so and so is watching me or someone is expecting me, right, to do that. And
Absolutely.
our brain works, it just like, oh, okay, it does
Yeah.
something for us. And we're like, okay, we got to get it together because I got to report out next week. I want to make sure I got something good. Got to let them know I've been working on this, right? But
Absolutely.
it works in our favor.
And
So,
it does. And I think you described that so beautifully because we're utilizing how our human brain
mm,
does work within society. We don't want to let people down. Oh, shoot, I said I'd do this and I haven't done it. I better do it. But you're actually doing it for yourself. And
yourself. Yes.
that's the bit where you kind of go, oh, yeah. And it makes you feel good. And we all know the
Yeah.
more you do what you say you are going to do,
Hmm.
the more you are going to trust yourself. And I think
Exactly.
that is such a key thing because when your identity is kind of like, okay, I've gotten to this stage in life and I'm not really sure even who I am, you can start to rebuild that trust in yourself. I
Yeah.
am somebody who says they are going to do something. Then that helps you to improve your self-respect, which increases your self-worth and your
Yeah.
confidence, which means then that you're more likely to carry on doing the stuff that you said you were going to do. So it becomes this positive, doesn't it,
Yeah.
kind of cycle.
It
Whereas I
does.
think a lot of the time in today's world, we get into this negative cycle.
Hmm.
And that's when we then kind of go, oh, well, you see, I knew I couldn't do it and I didn't have the skill set. And this is the power of coaching. And
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I just think that everybody should have a coach.
I think everybody should have a coach or an accountability partner or
Yeah,
a community of support, right?
yeah,
And they kind of work very much in tandem. Definitely coach is more structured, right? But when you think of just somebody that you trust to hold you accountable and
right,
to kind of go over, even when you have those setbacks or those failures or those lessons learned, as I like to call them, right? So not necessarily that it was all bad, but it's like, what can I glean from this? What can I learn from this to go back and do it again, not to quit, to go back and
right.
do it again. And when you're in a community of people that are like-minded and we're all on the same journey and we're all trying to strive and get to the same place, then we can kind of support each other in that, right? And so
So
I,
that's key, yeah.
yeah, I always tell my folks, I'm like, if you don't have money to join a professional community, go Facebook got all types of communities, right? Just go in there and search. If you want to find friends, look up friends. If you want to find solo travelers, look up solo travelers. But if you're trying to start a business in real estate, look up real estate groups, right? It's like everything is in there and you
Mm,
can find your way. You can find a community that resonates, that will support you in your journey because they understand what it is you're trying to do and what it is that you are doing and what that looks like. And so there's just so many options today that we can take advantage of. We just have to kind of be willing to go out there and explore it, right? And
brilliant. I
yeah,
love that. And I think just helping people to recognize, yeah, it doesn't have to be something
yeah,
that you pay for. It
yeah,
can be a free community. You mentioned, you were a church goer and, church is a community. People who join a choir, it's that whole community thing. And it could
yeah,
be, it could be a sports club. You might decide that you want to
yeah,
take up running or playing some kind of a racket sport, and then suddenly like-minded people. I think that's the key, isn't it?
yeah, it
It's
is.
like-minded people. So how do people find out if they like what they've heard you sharing? How do people find you? Where are you hanging out, Chandra?
So my website is chanda-co.com. And then social media is chanda two underscores co.
Brilliant.
Um, Thank you.
Fantastic. We will put the links in the show notes if you're listening on Apple and Spotify, and they'll be in the description for you to just click on if you are watching us on YouTube. And if you haven't yet subscribed, folks, please do give us a thumbs up, give us a like. If you like what you've heard in this episode, please share it with somebody who you think may find it helpful or useful. And so, Chandra, I'm going to ask you the question that I always ask my guests right at the very end. What is the one thing you would like the listener to take away from this podcast episode?
Being that we cover so much, I have to say, if you're grieving, give yourself permission. It's okay. You'll get through it. And grief is the cost of love. And for the rest of the listeners, YOLO, you only live once, so live.
Absolutely love that. Thank you so much for being a fantastic guest. And folks, I am going to leave you with this, as I always do. We only have one life, as far as we know, and one body. So please look after it, because it is looking after you. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Thank you.